Tonight on Reporting Scotland, the Prime Minister rejects calls to halt the rollout of universal credit. Opposition politicians argue the human cost of waiting weeks for the first payment is too great.
Borrowing money from friends and family for gas, electricity, using a food bank. We used a local food bank.
Also in the programme, a court hears a mother accused of murdering her baby daughter told relatives she wanted to have an abortion when she found out she was expecting a girl. Progress is being made in treatment for young people with mental health problems, but campaigners say not nearly enough. The world's first floating wind farm off the coast of Peterhead starts delivering electricity to the Scottish grid. And thousands of Celtic fans are in Germany ahead of their Champions League match against Bayern Munich tonight. Good evening. The UK government has insisted it will continue to implement the controversial new welfare system, Universal Credit. Earlier this month, MSPs voted to call on Westminster to halt the rollout of the scheme. Well, the issue has been fiercely debated at Westminster today. Critics say it leaves claimants with crippling debt. Those in favour maintain it's simpler and gets more people into work. Andrew Black reports.
Somebody else's horse ran into my horse at the bottom.
Gillian has always had a job, but a recent accident means the single mum of two from Pennycook has been unable to work.
It was through the common riding. I was horseback, got thrown off the horse, landed on my back end and sustained three fractures over 2 vertebrae on my back.
Gillian had to start claiming benefits through the new universal credit system, but the 6-week wait for the first payment caused severe financial problems.
It's a long time, especially when they stopped my child tax credits, which I've been receiving for the children on a weekly basis since I've been working. And when that stopped, that was like 6 weeks with absolutely nothing coming in. Borrowing money from friends and family for gas, electricity, using a food bank. I used a local food bank, which was quite embarrassing.
Those concerns were put to the Work and Pensions Secretary at Westminster, but he resisted opposition calls to put universal credit on hold while the impact of the policy was looked into.
The fundamental purpose of universal credit is to assist people into work. It's through work that people can support themselves, obtain greater economic security and progress in life. And universal credit does that by making work pay.
Plunging people into debt does not incentivise work. Forcing people into hunger does not incentivise work. Causing anxiety and distress and even evicting some families from their homes does not incentivise work.
Back in Pennycook, Gillian's hoping to get back to work soon, but her problems won't be over. She's had to take out a loan to get by and is behind on the rent.
It's going to be difficult, but there's not a lot I can do about it. I'd like to think I'm going to earn a bit more money working so I'll be able to clear my feet that bit quicker. But as it stands just now, I think I'm going to be struggling a bit, definitely.
Andrew Black, Reporting Scotland, Pennycook.
Well, the debate on universal credit is ongoing in the Commons. So let's go to Westminster and our political correspondent, Nick Erdley. And Nick, this vote this evening isn't expected to change the policy, is it?
No, that's right, Jackie. Conservative MPs will abstain tonight. That means a motion calling for the rollout of universal credit to be paused will pass. But it's non-binding. It's a message to government rather than something that ties their hands. Now, that doesn't mean, though, that pressure will go away. The idea of a streamlined benefits system isn't one that's controversial. The controversy comes at the implementation stage. And we've heard in the debate today many stories like the one you heard in Andrew's piece there, of people who've been left struggling as a result of the change to the new system. And many Conservative MPs, backbench Conservative MPs, have concerns too. So while government policy won't change after that vote tonight, I suspect there will be much more pressure, particularly in the run-up to next month's budget.
And Nick, earlier today, the Prime Minister was questioned about one of her Scottish MPs.
Yeah, that's right. Douglas Ross, who, as well as being the MP for Murray, is an assistant referee. Tonight he's running the line as Barcelona take on Olympiacos in the Champions League. Now that's attracted fury from opposition parties. They say it shows he has his priorities wrong, being in Barcelona tonight instead of in Parliament behind me. This came up earlier at PMQs.
Does the Prime Minister notice I am wearing a red card in my pocket today? She will be aware that the honourable member for Moray is not in his place. Indeed, he is in Barcelona doing his other job, today of all days. What signal does she think this sends to hard-working members of the public who are expected to turn up for their day jobs or face sanctions?
I have to say to the honourable gentleman that I think the constituents of Moray will be very pleased that they have a Conservative Member of Parliament who is seeing their interest in this House.
Now the Scottish Tories also point out that Douglas Ross was never down to speak today, but I've been speaking to UEFA and the SFA, and it's possible this could happen again. Mr Ross is on an elite group of Scottish referees who get sent to midweek European games, and with the European season having a long way to run, it runs until May, it's not impossible that he could be called up for another match. Many of those matches are on days where the Parliament behind me is sitting.
Thank you very much. Nick Earley at Westminster. A mother accused of killing her 14-month-old daughter told relatives she wanted to have an abortion. The number of young people treated for mental health problems in non-specialist hospital wards has reduced dramatically in the last 2 years. It's been welcomed by children's charities, but they say more beds are still needed. Our social affairs correspondent, Rival Alderson, reports.
3 years ago, Ryan, who's autistic and has learning difficulties, was sectioned and admitted to hospital.
Hiya, pal. How are you?
He's 16 now and in a residential school and keeps in regular contact with his grandmother. He was in hospital for 11 months in an adult ward, which had to be cleared of its other patients.
We had no peer group. It was just staff, and sometimes it was 3 to 1. Sometimes it was 4 to 1. He would come home to visit for a few hours. And it was nice for him because then he was having family contact, but then straight back into the unit with him being on his own again.
Ryan's case, the report says, isn't unique. 2 years ago, more than 200 children were admitted to non-specialist facilities. A year later, the figure was 135. In the most recent 12 months, that figure's almost halved. Skye House in Glasgow is one of only 3 specialist children's mental health units in Scotland, and staff try to ensure they admit them only when absolutely necessary.
They're admitted for treatment, and it's for the shortest period possible. So most of the assessment and the formulation takes place in the community. I think the main idea and the changes that we've made is that if you're here for a period of time and you're well enough to be at school and to stay at home, then the treatment continues, but you don't have to be an inpatient.
While charities say more cash should be spent on providing facilities like this, staff here say the cash would be better spent in developing intensive care facilities in the community and keeping young people out of hospital altogether. The government says it's already committed to that as part of its 10-year mental health strategy. But there are claims that Scotland has fewer than a quarter of the number of inpatient beds recommended by the Royal College of Psychiatrists.
Ideally, you want to treat children in the community, but the point of having those specialist beds is that children can then be treated in inpatient care quicker, and they can return to their communities quicker, they can recover more quickly.
The Commission says it's pleased more youngsters are being treated in the best place.
They've got a higher chance of getting appropriate care in a specialist unit, and that's why we're really glad to see that the number of young people being admitted to non-specialist units has dropped dramatically over the past 2 to 3 years.
The Commission hopes experiences like Ryan's will soon be a rarity. Rival Alderson reporting Scotland.
Today, the BBC across the UK has been looking at whether the NHS has been hitting key targets. We're looking at how long patients wait for cancer care, for planned operations and to be seen in accident and emergency. The findings are revealed as the BBC launches its online NHS tracker, which will allow you to see how your local health board is performing. Well, Aileen Clark has been looking at the NHS in Scotland. Aileen, how is it faring?
Well, if you turn up at A&E, then yes, Scottish hospitals are doing a little bit better than the hospitals elsewhere in the UK. Now, last year there was 3 months when, on average in Scotland, 95% of patients who turned up at A&E were treated or admitted within 4 hours. Now, that's the key target there. In England, Wales and Northern Ireland, they didn't hit that target at any point.
So where are we in terms of cancer treatment?
Well, unfortunately with cancer treatment we're not leading the field. Scotland didn't hit the targets last year, but then the health boards throughout the UK missed those targets as well. But the key target here is that 95% of people who get an urgent cancer referral from their GP, well, they should be getting their first chemo or maybe surgery within 62 days. So that's a very key target for cancer patients. Now, the last time Scotland hit that target was back in 2012. England managed to hit it in December 2015.
And what about planned operations here?
Well, if you want to get that dodgy hip sorted, Jackie, then
thank you, really.
You're welcome. You should actually be under the knife within 18 weeks, so 4.5 months of your GP referring you. Now, Scotland, again, didn't hit that target last year, neither did any of the other nations, but the last time Scotland did manage that was back in the summer of 2014.
And has there been any response to all of this from the Scottish Government?
Well, the Scottish Government are saying, look, that, they're putting record levels of investment into the health service. When it comes, for example, to cancer treatment, they know there's a bit to go there. There was only 87% of patients got that treatment in the timescale they should have done in June this year. They understand that's quite a bit away from the 95% they're aiming for. So there's a special group being set up to have a look at that and trying to speed that up. But also, I think it's really important to mention that these figures are national figures. It's comparing national figures, but you can find out what this actually means for you in your own area by looking at what your local health board is doing. And for example, in NHS Lanarkshire, they are very good at cancer treatments in that they hit their target for speeding people through to those, but they're not so good on A&E or planned operations. Likewise in Tayside, very speedy in A&E, not so speedy when it comes to getting people their cancer treatment. So it's well worth a look to see what this means for you in your own area.
Aileen, thank you. And if you want to do just that, to find out how your local health board is performing on waiting times for cancer, A&E and for planned operations, go to the BBC's NHS Tracker at bbc.co.uk/NHS Tracker. A serving police officer in Argyll and Bute has been charged with possessing indecent images of children. A supermarket worker who has been missing from Clydebank has been spotted in London. There's been a slight rise in unemployment in Scotland. The jobless rate here rose 0.3% between June and August compared to the previous 3 months. Laura McKeever can tell us more.
Scotland's been enjoying record levels of low unemployment this year, but the latest data shows the jobless rate rose over the summer. Unemployment in Scotland remains below the UK average, and the number of people in the workforce has gone up.
This is people who might have been in education, might have been unwell, or for some other reason weren't participating in the labour market, appear now to have transitioned into the labour market. And while those headline figures are strong and good and to be welcomed, there are broader concerns about economic growth, productivity growth, wage growth in the Scottish economy.
Michael Gowans is keen to expand his sports shop business, but explains the challenges of taking on more staff.
We can't really afford to get it wrong. Obviously the holidays, sick pay, everything that goes along with it and pension contributions, it's a massive investment for us as a small business to make, taking on a full-time member of staff.
Today's figures show a rise in female employment in Scotland over the quarter. Here at Swarm Online in Glasgow, staff develop mobile apps. It's a growing business, but one that has to work hard to find the right kind of skilled workers and wants to boost its female workforce.
We're working with initiatives like Code Clan to hire people into our business, and we want to recruit across Glasgow and Edinburgh. We are also getting more and more involved in initiatives around trying to encourage women into technology, and we'll be doing that from school level all the way through. So I know we're in it for the long game.
Far away from the technology world, Scotland's berry picking season is staffed largely by migrant workers, mostly from Eastern Europe. Soft fruit farmers are concerned any Brexit limits on the movement of workers will have a huge impact.
Without a good workforce, we just couldn't do what we do. And that's all the way from top down from the managers that we employ, from the really good supervisors to the harvest workers. You know, we are a people business. Without that good source of reliable people that are going to turn up every day and work hard, everything, we couldn't do what we do.
And while attention focuses today on the number of people in and out of work, the Scottish Chambers of Commerce points out that the gap between pay growth and inflation means the squeeze on wages is likely to continue. Laura McKeever, reporting Scotland.
The world's first floating wind farm has started to supply electricity to the grid after being officially opened by the First Minister. Nicola Sturgeon was flown over the high wind development around 15 miles off Peterhead, where it's hoped giant turbines could provide power for more than 20,000 homes. Rebecca Curran reports.
On a calm day over the North Sea, First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has a bird's-eye view of the world's first floating wind farm. 15 miles off Peterhead, the 5 turbines bob around in the waves. The First Minister enthusiastic about what she saw.
This is a massive day, a quite historic day for Scotland and for renewable energy. It's a great accolade for Scotland to be home to the world's first offshore floating wind farm, and this is important for our ability to generate renewable energy. It also helps to strengthen Scotland's position as a real world leader in renewable energy, so it's a fantastic day all round.
Each one of the floating turbines are taller than the Queensferry crossing. They're supported by giant cylinders filled with water and ballast.
The power generated offshore will be supplied to this electricity substation in Peterhead for transmission to the national grid. Statoil say it will be enough to power 20,000 homes.
On a clear day, you can see the turbines from the coast. It's hoped the technology will open up deep water areas that have so far been inaccessible for offshore wind.
The technology behind it is what's important. This is a pilot project, and when we get this on stream, and when we continue to get the cost down, this will pave a way for a lot of areas and give opportunities for a lot of new areas to use offshore wind.
Environmental groups have welcomed the development, although the RSPB believes too many offshore turbines have already been approved in the area. Rebecca Curran, reporting Scotland, Peterhead.
The world-renowned architect behind Dundee's V&A Museum visited his nearly completed work today and pronounced it impressive. Sport now, and Celtic's latest Champions League match gets underway in under an hour's time.